Hey guys, welcome back and welcome to all the new subscribers. Today we're going to look at the strong versus the weak conscience. The strong versus the weak conscience. And I'm going to reference 1 John 3:20. I'm going to read you that passage because before that in verse 18 it talks about loving in deed and truth, and that's kind of the basis for this whole thing. It starts there. So let's read 1 John 3, say 18 through 21. Little children, let us not love merely in theory or in speech, but in deed and in truth. That means in practice and in sincerity. By this we shall come to know, perceive, recognize, and understand that we are of the truth and can reassure, that means quiet, and pacify our hearts in His presence. Whenever our hearts in tormenting self-accusation make us feel guilty and condemn us, for we are in God's hands. For He is above and greater than our consciences, and He knows, perceives, and understands everything. That means nothing is hidden from Him. And beloved, if our consciences do not accuse us, then we have confidence before God. So, when you're talking about your conscience, you can either have a strong conscience or a weak conscience. And you might think it's the opposite, so I want to go over what each of those means. You might think someone with a strong conscience is too hard on themselves, but it's someone with a weak conscience that is too hard on themselves. So let's look at the difference and kind of apply this in that verse. Someone who has a strong conscience is someone who agrees with God in their heart at the deepest level. They agree with God in their heart, and they are stable in their heart. They can stand in the grace of God. Someone who's strong in their conscience runs from the law because they know Christ has delivered them from the law. Someone who's strong in their conscience receives the grace of God all day long. All day long. Receive, receive, receive. I'm not too proud. I'm not self-sufficient. No. I need your grace and I receive it all day long. Someone who has a strong conscience is not a controller. It's not trying to control their lives, not trying to control other people, not trying to make anything happen. That's not God's will. Someone who has a strong conscience forgives from the heart easily and will get help if they can't. They grieve freely. They don't hold in anything that they need to release. And they have a Christ focus. And they're more focused on the heart, 90% on the heart, and then maybe 10% on the exterior behavior, or not at all. So this is a Christ focus, agreeing with God in the heart, and receives grace all day long. Someone with a weak conscience, however, would be someone who is having trouble standing in the grace of God. They want to, but they keep falling. They keep falling from grace. See? They keep falling from grace. And that doesn't mean that they're sinning. It means that they're not trusting in the grace of God. They're running back to the law. They easily run back to the law to try to justify themselves, to try to say, I did something right. Or for some other reason. Someone who has a weak conscience also has trouble receiving. Maybe they don't want to receive, and they don't. And maybe they do want to receive, but they have trouble receiving. And if they do receive, it's not for very long. They bump back up to the law and they fall from grace. A lot of times if you struggle with a weak conscience, it can be from having, you will have a too strict of a conscience. In your heart, your heart will be too strict on you. And it's because of possibly a too strict of a parental environment. Your family of origin was too harsh and strict on you, and you have internalized that and you use it against yourself. And that's not the Holy Spirit. Also, someone with a weak conscience, might have a fear of not being in control. And so when that fear seizes them, they feel condemned, or they condemn someone else, or maybe they're trying to perform, and when their performance fails, as it always will, then they fall and have a weak conscience. A weak conscience can also come from legalistic teachings that you've heard. Some type of off-base Christian teaching that's not really Christian, but in the Christian environment, legalistic teachings can cause you to have a weak conscience. And then a weak conscience can also come from focusing on the external and on the behavior instead of on the heart where the behavior is coming from. So if you have a weak conscience, don't feel bad about it. It is just where you are. Ask the Lord to strengthen your conscience and ask and do what he tells you or asks you to do, to be in agreement with him. If he says he wants you to grieve more over your losses, let go of being in control and stop going back to the law and have it out with the Lord. Have a temper tantrum or a meltdown with the Lord when you would normally condemn yourself, and let him show you his grace. And that will help you to go deeper in your heart, to agree with the Lord in your heart. So just take note of these and keep them in the back of your mind, because when you condemn yourself, God is above our conscience and he sees everything. We see only a little bitty slice of everything, and then a smaller slice than that of reality. So he's above it and he sees everything. And so if he's not condemning you, then there's no need for you to condemn yourself. And that passage I read back in verse 18, it said, "Let us not love merely in theory or in speech, but in deed and in truth." And so it says, by this, what he just said, loving in deed and in truth, we will come to understand that we are of the truth, and we can reassure our consciences or our hearts in his presence. So when you are, verse 18, loving indeed, that means with action, and in truth, with sincerity, then you will know, even if you make mistakes and you have trouble and all this, if you are loving indeed in truth in your life, somewhere at some level, and you're growing in that and wanting to grow in it, you can calm and pacify your conscience in God's presence, because he will show you that he's higher than you. You are not the final judge. You are just a peon, and I'm just a peon down on this planet. We're like little ants, okay? Our perception of things is not reality. So come here to the Lord if your conscience condemns you, and sit in his presence and let him, and the knowledge that he has of you and his opinion and judgment of you, which he says you're justified, let that sink down into your heart and help you to rise above whatever you're struggling with over here, so that you can agree with God and little by little maybe move over here. Okay? I hope this is helpful. You guys have a great day, and God bless you.